Hi guys, welcome back. Domain 5 Risk Management, Chapter 5.6 Explain Disaster Recovery Continuity of Operations Concept. So first we are going to see the disaster recovery, the list of topic here. Backup concept, recovery sites, hot site, warm site, cold sites, order of restorations. There is a two topic: recovery time objective, recovery point objective, geographic considerations, continuity of operations. We will see one by one. So disaster recovery. So many type of disasters, whether natural or caused by people, can stop your organization operations for some length of time. Such as disaster are unlike the threats to your computer system and networks, because the event that cause the disruptions are not specifically aimed at your organizations. This is not to say that those other threats won't disrupt operations. They can an industrial espionage, hacking, disgruntled employees, and insider threat all must be considered. The purpose of sections is to point out additional event that you may not have previously considered. So the amount of time your organization's operations are disrupted depends in part on how prepared it is for a disaster and what plans are in place to mitigate the effect of disaster. Disaster recovery is the process that organization use to recover from events that disrupt normal operations. Okay, so fortunately this type of event do not happen very often. It is most likely that business operations will be interrupted due to employee error, examples such as accidental corruptions of database or unplugging a system to plug in a vacuum cleaner, an event that has occurred at more than one organization. A good disaster plans would prepare your organization for any type of organization disruptions. Okay, so we will see the next slide now. Planning documents. A key element is business continuity disaster recovery, BCR, BCP or DRP. So is the BCP or DRP is the availability of backup. This is true not only because of the possibility of disaster, but also because hardware and storage media will periodically fail, resulting in loss of corruptions of critical data. An organization might also find backups critical when the security measure have failed and an individual has gained access to important information that may have become corrupted or at very least cannot be trusted. Data backup is thus a critical element in these plans. As well as in normal operations, there are several factors to consider in an organization data backup strategy. How frequently should backup be conducted? How extensive do the backup need to be? What is the process of conducting backups? Who is responsible for ensuring backups are created? Where will the backups be stored? How long will backups be kept? How many copies will be maintained? Keep in mind that the purpose of a backup is to provide valid, uncorrupted data in the event of corruptions or loss of organization's files or the media where the data was stored. Depending on the types of organization, legal requirements for maintaining backups can also affect how it is accomplished. There are four main forms of backups: full, incremental, differential, snapshot. So each of these has advantage and disadvantage in terms of time to backup and restore, as well as the complexity. These are described in the coming sections. I will show you that. So recovery sites related to the location of backup storage is where the restoration service will be located. If the organization has suffered physical damage to its facility, having off-site data storage is only part of the solution. This data will need to be processed somewhere, which means that computing facilities similar to those used in normal operations are required. These sites are referred to as recovery sites. The recovery problem can be approached in a number of ways, including backup sites, hot sites, warm sites, cold sites. Okay, backup sites, location for recurring systems or business operation. Hot sites, servers, networks, and telecommunication equipment in place online to re-establish service most expensive. So a hot site is a fully configured environment similar to the normal operation environment that can be operational immediately or within a few hours depending on its configurations and the needs for the organization. Warm sites. A warm site is a partially configured, usually having the peripherals and software but perhaps not the more expensive main processing computer. It is designed to be operational within a few days. And then cold site. A cold site will have the basic environmental control necessary to operate, but few of the computing components necessary for processing. Getting a cold site operational may take a few weeks. Okay, next slide. Order of restoration. Part of the planning for a disaster is to decide the order of restoration, which system should be restored first, second, and ultimately last. There are a couple of distinct factors to consider. First are dependencies. Any system that is dependent upon another for proper operation might as well wait in line to be restored until the prerequisite service are up and running. The second factor is critically to the enterprise. The most critical service should be brought back up first. Backup concept. A key element and types of backups. There are four different: full, incremental, differential, and then copies and snapshot. Okay. First, the full backup, the complete backup of all data, the most time and resource intensive form of backup. So this is the easiest type of backup to understand is the full backup. In a full backup, all files and softwares are copied onto storage media. Restoration from a full backup is similarly straightforward. You must copy all the file backup onto the system. The process can take a considerable amount of time. Consider the size of even the average home PC today, for which storage is measured in tens and hundreds of gigabytes. Copying this amount of data takes time. In a full backup, the archive bit is clear. Incremental. The incremental backup is a variations on a differential backup, with the difference being that instead of copying all files that have changed since the last full backup, the incremental backups backs up only files that have changed since the last full or incremental backup occurred, thus require fewer files to be backed up. With incremental backups, even less information will be stored in each backup. Just as in this case of differential backup, the incremental backup relies on the occasional full backup being accomplished. After that, you back up only files that have changed since the last backup of any sort was conducted. To restore a system using the type of backup method requires quite a bit more work. You first need to go back to the last full backup, reload the systems with this data. Then you have to update the systems with every incremental backup that has occurred since the full backup. The advantage of this type of backup is that it requires less storage and time to accomplish. The disadvantage is that the restoration process is more involved. Assuming that you don't frequently have to conduct a complete restorations of your system. However, the incremental backup is valid technique. An incremental backup will clear the archive bit. Differential. In a differential backup, only the file that have changed since the last full backup was completed or backed up. This also implies that periodically a full backup needs to be accomplished. The frequency of the full backups versus the interim differential backup depends on your organization and needs to be part of your defined strategy. Restoration from a differential backup requires two steps. The last full backup first needs to be loaded, and then last differential backup performed can be applied to update the file that have been changed since the full backup was conducted. Again, this is not a difficult process, but it does take some time. The amount of time to accomplish the periodic differential backup, however, is much less than that for a full backup, and this is one of the advantages of this method. Obviously, if a lot of time has passed between differential backup, or if most files in your environment change frequently, then the differential backup doesn't differ much from full backup. It should also be obvious that to accomplish the differential backup, the system has to have a method to determine which files have been changed since some given point in time. The archive bit is not clear in a differential backup, since the key for differential is to back up all files that have changed since the last full backup. Last one, copies and snapshot. A snapshot is a copy of your virtual machines at a specific point in time. A snapshot is created by copying the file that store the virtual machines. One of the advantages of a virtual machines over a physical machine is the ease with which the virtual machine can be backed up and restored. The ability to revert to an earlier snapshot is as easy as clicking a button and waiting for the machine to be restored by a change of the file. Okay, next slide. Backup strategy. An important element to factor into the cost of the backup strategy is the expense of storing the backup. A simple strategy might be to store all your backup together for quick and easy recovery actions. This is not however a good idea. Suppose the catastrophic event that necessitated the restoration of backed up data was a fire that destroyed the computer system that data was processed on. In this case, any backups that were stored in the same facility might also be lost in the same fire. Okay, so the solution is to keep copy of backups in separate location. The most recent copy can be stored locally as it is the most likely to be needed, while other copies can be kept at other locations. Depending on the level of security your organization decides, the storage facilities itself could be reinforced against possible threats in your area. Your most recent advance is online backup services. A number of third-party companies offer high-speed connections for storing data in a separate facility. Transmitting the backup data via network connections alleviates some other issue with physical movement of more traditional storage media, such as the care during transportations. Okay. Geographic considerations. Offsite backup. Offsite backups are just that backups that are stored in a separate location from the system being backed up. This can be important in the realm of problems that can be affected large area than a single room. A building fire, a hurricane, a tornado, these are all disasters that occurs frequently and typically affect a large area than a single room or building. Having backups offsite alleviates the risk of losing the backup to same problem. In today's high-speed networks world with cloud service storing backups in the cloud is an option that can resolve many of the risk issues associated with the backup availability. Second, distance. The distance associated with an offsite backup is a logistic problem. If you need to restore your systems and the backup is stored hours away by car, the increases the recovery time. The delay resulting from physical movement of backup tapes has been alleviated in many systems. Distance is also critical when examining the reach of disasters. It is important that off-site location is far enough away that is not affected by the same incident. This includes the physical locations of cloud storage providers' servers. If your business is somewhere in this New Jersey, and so is your cloud provider servers. For example, Hurricanes Maria likely made your data unavailable for a long time. Location selections. Picking a storage location for backup has several key elements. First is physical safety of the backup media. Because of this importance to maintain a proper environmental conditions safe from outside harms, this can limit locations. HVAC can be a consideration, as well as issues such as potential flooding and theft. Protecting the backup media is important, as damage to it may not be discovered until the media is needed, and then the loss becomes potential catastrophic. Ability to move the backups in and out of a storage is also concerned. Again, the cloud and networks comes to a rescue. With today's high-speed network, reasonably priced storage, and the ability to store backups in redundant arrays across multiple sites, all while protecting the information through encryptions, cloud storage is the ideal solution. Legal implications. With regards to location selections, if you are considering cloud storage for your backup, you must take into consideration the legal implications of where the data would actually be stored. Different jurisdictions have different laws, rules, and regulations concerning core tools such as encryption, and understanding how these affect data backup storage plans is critical to prevent downstream problems. Some countries require storage of data concerning their citizens to be done within their border. Under the legal jurisdiction, other countries may have different government regulations concerning privacy that would impact the security of the data. In the end, where the data is actually stored, for what might be cloud in Atlanta in this week, cloud it could be Albania next week, So data sovereignty is a regulation. It's a relatively new type of legislation several countries have enacted recently that mandates data stored within their border is subject to their law, and in some cases the data originating within their borders must be stored there. In today's multinational economy, with the internet's lack of borders, this has become a problem. Several high-tech firms have changed their business strategies and offering in order to comply with the data sovereignty and regulations. For example, LinkedIn, a business social network site, recently was told by Russian authorities that it needed to store all of its data on Russian citizens on servers in Russia. LinkedIn took the business decisions that the cost was not worth the benefit and has since abandoned the Russian market. Okay, so next slide. Continuity of operations planning, COOP. Ensuring continuity of operation is business imperative, as it has been shown the business that cannot quickly recover from a disruptions have a real chance of never recovering and going out of business. The overall goals of continuity of operation planning is to determine which subset of normal operations need to be continued during period of disruptions. Continuity of operation plannings involve developing a comprehensive plan to enact during situations where normal operations are interrupted. So this includes identifying critical assets, critical systems and interdependencies and ensuring their availability during disruptions. Developing a continuity of operation plan is a joint effort between the business and the IT team. The business understands which functions are critical for continuity of operations and which functions can be suspended. The IT team understands how this translates into equipment, data and services and can establish the correct IT functions. Senior management will have to make the major decisions as to risk balance versus cost versus criticality when examining hot, warm, cold site strategy. Okay. So policy and procedures is just as identifying the documenting lessons learned is a key element of the incident response process. After action reports should be prepared after invoking the continuity of operation plan similar the lesson learned. After actions reports serve two functions. First, they document the level of operations upon transfer to the backup system. Is all of the capability necessary to continue operations up and running? The second question set address how the actual change from normal operation to those supported by continuity system occurred, including documenting what went right and what went wrong. Okay, so failover is the process for moving from a normal operation capability to the continuity of operations versions of the businesses. The required speeds and flexibility of the failure depends on the business types, from seamless for most financial sites to a slightly delayed process when A is turned off and someone goes and turns B on with some period of no service between. Simple transparent failover can be achieved through architectures and technology choices, but they must be designed into the system. Simpler, slightly delayed failover costs less, but result is less continuity for those connected to the system. Failover can be technology driven through where one system fails and a redundant system takes its place without notice by the rest of the process. Failover can also be interrupted to service. Switch to business continuity of operations mode type event that involves technology, peoples and shifting business process. In both extremes and all cases in between, the term failover refers to the shift from primary or original processing to redundant or secondary form. Separate form of failover which occurs whenever a problem occurs is a switch backup to the original system. Once a system is fixed, resolving whatever caused the outage, there is need to move backup to the original production systems. These failback mechanisms by definition is harder to perform a primary key and indice or not easily transfer backup. The return to operation is more complicated process, but the good news is that it can be performed at a time of organization choosing, unlike the problem that initiated the initial shift of operation to continuity procedures. So alternate business practice is one of the key aspects of planning. Solid or cost effective continuity of an operation plan is considered alternate processing sites. In the worst case, the action that triggered the shift to the continuity system could also have rendered the physical locations of the original business system unusable. Another consideration is the scale and volume of transactions to be processed while in the continuity mode of operations. Typically the volume is smaller, meaning that smaller site can handle the continuity operations. It is also important to consider the operation as continuity system will require people to operate specific aspect of their functions and locations of the sites where they are physically accessible by the correct personnel is important. If you choose an alternative processing site that is 500 miles away in another majority cities and you don't have staff or personnel there, you need to have a plan to temporarily move the required personnel, including temporary lodging, etc. In a company with multiple sites, it is uncommon to use different geographic office to cover the one that is lost, using local people to run the business continuity processes. Okay. Exam preparations. So this is the steps where you prioritize the system and service to be recovered in a disaster event, with the most critical system coming online first. Answer A. Order of restorations. Answer is A. Order of restorations. So that's it guys for this video. Please subscribe my channel if you haven't. Press the bell button to get more update. I'll post more practice lab later on video. Share the video to your friends if you like. Have a good day. Bye bye.